And in daily practice, if you use an hour or two a day?
I suggest when people first begin that, they start off with maybe 15 or 20 minutes, but as quickly as they can, within a few weeks, work their way up to 45 minutes. And I'd say that's a sort of a minimum practice period.
Can you talk about the advantage of the longer sitting period, of what can be accomplished in 45 that can't in 15?
Certainly, yes. And this becomes really noticeable when you've acquired a certain degree of skill. When you've acquired a certain degree of skill, then by sitting longer, there's several different things happen. One of the most obvious things that happens, if you've been sitting for 45 minutes and you extend it to an hour, you're going to find that the quality of the last 15 minutes is not
the
what you're
part,
used to.
Yeah.
It's not what you're used to, which means that it's like lifting weights, and now you've added a couple more weights to the bar, sort of thing. And so that last 15 minutes is in terms of a training effect, it's going to be much stronger than the first 45 were. Although it's going to be much less satisfying because this is not what I'm used to. My mind is starting to wander. I'm starting to slip.
Oh, you mean the last 15 minutes? You think the mind starts wandering more in the last 15 minutes?
It can.
Oh.
It can. It doesn't always. There's another effect, which maybe this is the one that you were thinking of.
Yeah.
That you really go beyond.
I'm thinking of the meditation is, it takes a while just kind of to settle, kind of like you stir up the water, and then the dirt kind of settles to the bottom a little bit, and that it's the last part. It's like any meeting. You have a meeting, a rehearsal, something. Right. The last half hour is the most productive. It took us an hour and a half for everybody's minds to kind of all get in one place. So I think of the last 15 minutes of an hour of meditation as being the gold part.
Well, it is. Once you get past what I was referring to here, when you first increase the duration of your sitting, not necessarily everyone, but a lot of people will experience that as being particularly difficult.
Well, because they've never sat that long.
That's right.
Oh, yes. Oh, there's a freak out. Yeah.
And the restlessness and the impatience starts to rise. And
when's the bell going to ring?
So, but although it has that feeling to it, what you're doing in that fit is really good. You're pushing yourself a little bit, and that's what leads to what you were talking about.
Right.
The longer you sit, the further you go, the better it gets, and that's what's so wonderful about doing a retreat. If you can take the time, meditate 8, 10, or more hours a day, every day for however many days in a row. It's actually very similar to what I just described.
You get the momentum.
Yeah. And then again, it involves both of the same two stages. If you've been meditating daily and haven't been on a retreat before, it's been a year since the last time you were on retreat, the first 2 or 3 days are, this is really, really tough.
Yeah.
Body hurts and everything else. But you get to about the 3rd day, and all of a sudden, you start to be able to do things and have experiences, and the quality of your practice that you never could in a daily practice.
Also, for me, longer sits, and on my own, I'll sit an hour, maybe 90 minutes. But if there's a group of people, even if they're stopping every half hour, just knowing I'm in a place with a group of people, I'll do 2 hours, or I like kind of holding the space. And there's something about, I remember we used to meet and have a group that we did a 2-hour strong determination sit where we didn't move for 2 hours, and it hurt. But it was really interesting. The last half hour of that 2 hours was really the golden time, and I thought, I would feel the benefit of that for a longer period of time. And I had this amazing experience, and I never did it. Well, I did a few more times, but did a 4-hour sit. And it was really, really interesting, because at 2 hours you go great, and then at 3, that thing goes off. Oh, I haven't gone this far before. But at one point, I remember it was like, I think it was about 3, or it was just after 2, but I remember about 3 hours being kind of aware I was in meditation, but it was easier, it was that momentum, it was easier to keep sitting than to get up. I hadn't intended on sitting 4 hours.
Right.
But, and I swear, I had just popped in for a day and a month, and it wasn't a retreat even, it was just a one-day event. And I felt the benefit of that for a month. And I thought, wow, now why aren't I doing these 4-hour sits? But that takes a kind of a discipline that for me, the group structure, like a retreat setting, it's like creating that environment you're talking about. That was real helpful. So I want everyone to go out and do 4-hour sits now.
Well, it takes dedication, and it has to become a priority in your life. Just to meditate at all every day, you have to make it a priority, because there's all these other things competing with your time. But when you reach that sort of stage where you realize that, well, why don't I do 2 hours a day, or why don't I do longer meditation more often? The only way that's going to happen is if it is enough of a priority that you're willing to go back and rearrange all of the other demands on your time.
Right.
What I encourage people to do is to meditate at least 1 hour a day, or 45 minutes to an hour, and longer, and try to create occasions when they can meditate longer. And at some point, I will encourage people, well, you should increase your meditation to an hour a day. Maybe try doing another sit in the evening. That's half an hour or something,
Right.
just to move them in that direction, so they have the opportunity to acquire the motivation, because when you get the kind of experience that you have, then it helps a lot. The other thing is I have revived a very ancient Buddhist custom of observing Upasaka Day.
What?
Upasaka.
Oh, Upasaka Day?
Upasaka.
Okay.
Yeah. And this was one day a week when lay people would set aside for their practice. It's all they would do. I mean, typically, Upasaka is still observed in some Buddhist countries, and lay people will often go to the local monastery, and they'll spend the whole day meditating and listening to teachings by the monks.
Kind of what Sunday was designed to be in this tradition.
That's right. It's very
turned into something else.
That's exactly right. And I think it fits really well into a society where people are used to the idea of a Sabbath. Of course, they were on a lunar calendar in those days, and Upasaka was on the quarters of the moon. And that doesn't work too well because it lands on a different day every week. But it comes to the same thing if you just set aside one day a week. And so I encourage people to observe Upasaka Day. And that's a good day to meditate for 4 hours, or 5, or for some longer period of time. And to also spend the rest of the day in the company of people that you can discuss the Dharma. And so I have revived this custom of observing Upasaka Day for my students, and so every Sunday we observe Upasaka Day where I live, and I invite them to come out. We have a little Dharma talk, and we do several meditation sittings in a row. And I think this is
like a one-day retreat.
Yeah, it's like a
Once
one day,
a week.
one day, and it's not even a full day. But I always encourage them; they can stay around longer and keep on meditating.
Right.
So, but in terms of what you were mentioning there, it's along the lines of what you were saying, that you discover that these longer sits are really good for you. They are really beneficial. And so what you might end up doing is saying, well, I may meditate for 1 hour a day, but once a week I'm going to meditate for 4 hours or 3 hours, something like that.
Right. It's interesting. My teacher, Shinzen Young, has a saying he used to say all the time. He doesn't say it much anymore, but I took it and I carried it as my flag. If you can't be disciplined, be clever. And I have no discipline whatsoever. I really don't. The daily practice part has always been my biggest challenge, but I am so clever. I mean, I just, I create little rewards and da-da-da. Even though I like it and I do it and it's always wonderful, because I do so many things. I've got like 5 careers, but I always, have to do a clever way of getting me to sit. And one is we have a once a month, 1 day thing that we do, or sitting groups are good. What you said, getting within the group. They're very lucky here to have access to a teacher. That's rare, to have a teacher open himself up once a week to get that kind of feedback. But often people on their own can kind of gather together. But I do that kind of stuff, even if I just see a bunch of people gathered, I go, oh, yeah. Clever. Kind of just to take advantage of that environment, because when I'm home and I live kind of in one room, there's a desk and,
right.
I'm seeing all the to-dos. And I walk in here and I don't see to-dos, I see a bunch of places to meditate.
That's right.
So my cleverness is of getting me out of there and putting me in there. But it's lovely. There's a lovely heart of you to have created that space for everyone to come and offer not only the space but that interaction.
Well, it makes me happy. I really enjoy it. I love to see people come and practice. And what I especially love to see is when they start to enjoy the benefits, that they start to really get some results, and that makes me happy. So I'm nurturing myself by doing these things. It's really very important that people form practice groups and get together on a regular basis. And if you have a practice group, I don't know if you have one that gets together regularly, but when somebody has a practice group and you take turns hosting, then you create that environment. They arrive, it's a friendly atmosphere, and like you say, there's all these places to sit, and that's what we came here to do. And it can be really strongly reinforcing, and you can have a good meditation for a longer period of time, perhaps. And so I encourage everyone everywhere to do that.
And I'll even have some people come where, that's their spot,
Yeah.
You always just feel by the window, and when everyone gets in their spot, there's some kind of, I don't know, there's just this, I think what I'm feeling is that everyone's feeling taken care of. There's a being nurtured, there's a being taken care of, and I've got my spot and I've got my place, and and there's something about that, and I feel for myself probably what you feel. I feel taken care of.
Yeah.
It is a kind of a blessing to just anytime have a group of people gathered with such noble intention.
Yes.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
That's a high. Now everyone wants to teach meditation, right? That's what we're really doing, the drive.